Okay, so I'm going to attempt to scan this Nissan X-Trail. I couldn't scan it yesterday with the Snap-on scan tool because it's Canadian only. So we'll see if the information is in the MaxiSys scan tool. Let's try an automatic detection and read the VIN. See if it'll auto ID. Yeah, okay. See if it'll decode it. And it does. North America common, except Canada, or except US. Alright, let's go into diagnosis. And auto scan. I've got the key on and the battery charger connected. The Snap-on scan tool got into the engine, ABS, but it didn't get into the meter, the BCM. No, the engine and airbag, that's what it got into. Snap-on is geared towards the US market, and sometimes Canadian vehicles aren't supported by their scan tool. If there's a US equivalent, you can ID it as that and it'll often work, but I couldn't find one. This is a Nissan X-Trail with a 2.5 4-cylinder. Now the Snap-on scan tool did pull up a P0420 and a purge solenoid code. I'll pick up when we get to the end of this network code scan. Well, I will say it's painfully slow at scanning this thing. It's been 2 minutes now, but it's showing 4 faults in the engine control module. Now I did have the fuel level sender unplugged yesterday, so that might have generated a new fault code for that. Showing 1 fault in the transmission side of things, and I didn't get into the transmission computer before. Again, we're still at 82%. So that took like 3 minutes to do that scan. Showing 4 faults in the engine, 1 fault in the transmission, and as I said, the Snap-on scan tool got me into the engine and ABS, no, engine and airbag. Let's see what the faults are. Let's look at the report. P0420, 3-way catalyst, P0443, and I'm sure that's fuel tank temperature sensor and fuel level sensor. I had the plug unplugged and the key on several times, so those codes are from that. But these same 2 codes, P0420 and P0443, that seems to be fairly current. 27 times purge volume control. Now, is that an electrical fault or mechanical fault? We'll have a look at the troublemaker chart for that. So I'm going to go into the engine computer and see if there's an active test for the purge solenoid. For a couple of reasons. If I can hear it clicking, I can find it. And if I can't hear it clicking, that probably means it's mechanically stuck. I still haven't checked to see if that code is relative to an electrical failure of the circuit or a mechanical failure of the circuit. This is not screaming fast, so I imagine it would be under active tests. There's purge volume control valve. And I guess this is the data you want to look at. Well, let's look at it all. What the hell? Okay. That'll slow down the refresh rate significantly, I imagine. So, click up. Quick up, quick down. Oh, I see, that's... I'm trying to command it. Boy, that's slow to respond. 4, 5. I don't hear the solenoid from here. It's pretty quiet in my shop. Usually you'd be able to hear it. Usually the purge solenoid's in the engine bay on the engine because it's duty cycled and it tends to make noise. So I'm going to go see if I can find it. So remove the engine cover And you can see the purge solenoid here. You can see that green cap for EVAP testing. This is the purge solenoid here. It's plugged in, but if it's being commanded on, it's not doing anything. We're going to unplug it and put a noid light across here. Actually, let's clear the code and see if the code comes back immediately first. So I'm going to erase codes. Key on, engine off. Yes. And just try reading codes. Now it's possible it won't set yet. Let's try active tests again. Purge solenoid. And what other? Maybe we can speed it up by just picking EVAP's test. Up. Wow, it's slow. Doesn't help to click it any faster. How about quick up? Oh, why didn't I do that the first time? 25%, 30%. Let's escape and go back and see if that code is reset. No, it hasn't. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. So I'm going to put a noid light on that circuit. So I have the purge solenoid commanded to 40%, and the key is on, of course. A noid light across the solenoid connector. As you can see, it's not illuminating at all. So I'm going to find out what sets I code, and if there's supposed to be power there, we're going to check that. So I'm back in the all data information system, and I'm looking up the P0443. That's the fault code that was set. Diagnostic procedure. Let's read the onboard diagnosis logic. See if it describes it. Canister purge volume control solenoid valve. If purge flow is detected during the specified driving conditions, even when EVAP canister purge volume control solenoid valve is completely closed. So it's a mechanical fault. It's flow when it's not supposed to be flowing. Possible causes: EVAP control system pressure sensor, EVAP canister purge volume control solenoid valve. Valve is stuck. Well, we can check for vacuum. With it disconnected, there shouldn't be any vacuum. They're normally closed. Canister vent control valve. Canister itself, hoses. Hoses are connected incorrectly. Alright, let's see what the troublemaker chart suggests. Diagnostic procedure. Disconnect harness. Check for voltage on pin 1. So I thought I'd check for power at this pink wire. There's a pink wire here. So I've got a test probe in there. I'll make sure my test light works before we condemn anything here. Test light works. Key is on, and I have no power on that pink wire. And I thought they said that this was an electrical fault or a mechanical fault code. Well, we got to have power to that solenoid. Let's see where it comes from. So I finally found the electrical diagram for that EVAP purge solenoid. According to this, it's the white wire that's power, and the pink wire is the control side. Oh, jam. Don't assume. So that's what happens when you assume. I assumed the pink wire would be the ignition power because it's typically the color that manufacturers use, but obviously not Nissan. White is power, and I do have power with the key on. It comes from this ECM power relay, so that's obviously working. Now it's possible that that bidirectional test in the MaxiSys scan tool doesn't work, and that's why it didn't light my Noid light. But we're going to pull the vacuum hose off and see if there's vacuum being passed through that solenoid all the time. So I've disconnected the hose with the green cap on it, which is the outlet hose going to the charcoal canister. And I've got the electrical plug unplugged, and I got a vacuum gauge on there, and there's no vacuum being passed through that solenoid. So we're going to command it on and see if it works while it's running. Maybe that test will only work while it's running, although it does say that it should function key on, engine off. So that test is meant to be done running, not key on, engine off. As you can see, that solenoid works just fine. I've got it plugged back in. Let's de-energize it. System is holding vacuum, de-energized. Let's see if it's still holding vacuum, sending vacuum to it. Nope. Well, there's obviously not a gross leak in that line. It's commanded on to 20% again. Now, why would it make the engine run poorly? That's strange. I'll command it off, that's 20%. It seems to hold vacuum as well. So there's no gross leak in that line. Well, it's hard to say what's going on here. I'm going to look and see what's common to cause this issue. But that solenoid seems to be working right now. That doesn't mean it doesn't stick once in a while. So I've come to the conclusion that the purge solenoid is working fine. According to that diagnostic strategy, the code is a mechanical failure of the system where it's seeing vacuum when it shouldn't. That's my take on it anyway. So I'm going to try and command the vent solenoid on and off, because remember, it held vacuum when I bled off or shut off the purge, and I'm not sure if the vent solenoid is normally open or normally closed. So I've got a vent control here now. I don't know if this is active with key on, engine off, or if it's, I think I've got it on, I can hear it click, but I think this one here allows it to command on and off. About every 5 seconds or so. Yeah, I can hear it clicking. I wonder if that's normally open or normally closed. But I can hear the solenoid clicking. I'm chasing this thing realistically. Why is this not focused? We're chasing this thing realistically, and there's an active problem with the catalytic converter. So no matter what I do, the light's going to be on afterwards. I'm going to have to discuss this with the customer. So here's the vent control solenoid right at the very back corner. Couldn't have picked a better spot for it, could you, Nissan? And right now it's being commanded on and off. Heard it click. And it's about every 10 seconds. There it goes again. Maybe it's like 30 seconds. You can hear it mechanically moving, but that doesn't mean it doesn't stick at sometimes and cause a problem. Wonder if these are prone to the filler pipes. Man, this thing is rusty. Filler pipe's rusting out. But it said it was showing a vacuum when it shouldn't show it. I wonder if this has got a purge and seal test like a Chevy. So I think I'm going to try this small leak P0442 1442 code, or self-test. But I have to lower the vehicle and start it and run it and see if it passes this test, because maybe this problem is intermittent. So for whatever reason it won't let me run the test. Might be too much fuel in the tank, or it thinks there's too much fuel in the tank. Remember, we do have a problem with the fuel gauge on this truck, so this thing is wasted enough time. I give up. So I'm looking at the O2 sensor activity for that P0420 code, and this thing is showing lean on bank 1 sensor 2, which is the post-catalyst O2 sensor, consistently. It's too good. Usually these two will look the same, switching from about 100 to 900 millivolts if you get the P0420 code, but this one seems to be working just fine right now, unless this O2 sensor is malfunctioning, because normally it's about 0.5 or 0.6. 0.5 to 0.7 and relatively flat line. I'm going to shut it off and let it cool off again and see what it does when I start it. I just wanted to have a look at the diagnostic procedure provided by Nissan for this P0443, which apparently is caused by purge detected when it shouldn't. It starts out with disconnecting the solenoid and checking for power on pin 1. Doesn't say what color that is. I assumed it was pink. It turns out it's white. So if that's okay, it says go to step 3. It says turn the ignition off, disconnect the ECM harness connector, and check continuity of the ECM terminal 45 to the canister purge solenoid. Like, why would you do that? That's just a waste of time. Why not just command it on and listen to it? But nevertheless, increases the billable hours, I guess. It says continuity should exist. If it's okay, go to step 4. Then it says disconnect the EVAP control system pressure sensor harness connector and check for water. I don't even know where the pressure sensor is. It's probably on the fuel tank or somewhere in the line. If it's water does not exist, go to step 5. Refer CL Diagnostic Trouble Peak Component Inspection. So if you click on this, it takes you to this chart, which has you testing the pressure sensor with a vacuum pump and measuring voltage at pin 32. Why not monitor it on the scan tool? As you can see it on the scan tool, and this one shows 4.06 volts right now. If you look at the chart here, it says with no vacuum applied, which I assume we would have none now because it's not running, it's 1.8 to 4.8. Can't we get a little bit tighter than that? I'm sure it's not that broad. But mine says 4.06 right now. Why not just read it on the scan data? Just insane, these steps. It's just going to increase the billable hours. With 26 inches of vacuum, it should be 2.1 to 2.5 volts lower than the above value. Really? Well, I tried to run the test and it won't run for some reason, maybe because the fuel level's too high in the tank. It says it's best done when it's 1/4 to 3/4, and it's showing nearly full right now. So I can see why technicians waste a lot of time, because these troubleshooting steps should be referred to as troublemaker steps, because they're, in my opinion, a waste of time. I'm going to discuss this repair with the customer, and we're going to see how this P0420 code and the O2 sensor activity now on a restart. So I've had the key on, engine not running for several minutes now, probably 10 minutes, and bank 1 sensor 1 shows 0 volts, which it should in my opinion, but bank 1 sensor 2 shows 0.28 volts, which doesn't make sense. I mean, the vehicle's not running, so why is it pegged at 0.28 volts? Let's see what happens when we start it. So we can see activity on bank 1 sensor 1, but this hasn't changed. There's no way it can be pegged at 0.26, so I think that bank 1 sensor 2 is compromised. So we're going to suggest replacement of that sensor because it shouldn't be pegged at 0.26 volts. Even when I snap the throttle, it doesn't respond to a rich condition. So I snapped the throttle and you could see the bank 1 sensor 1 went rich, but this didn't change. So this sensor is dead. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the cause of the P0420, but we've got to start with good functioning sensors before we get carried away changing catalytic converters. At least that's my opinion.